is that I might find the right words, because this is not about me. My heart is full. Barry knows. There are so many things I would like to share with you, and I hope the Holy Spirit will really guide me to make it useful for you. Please, if you have any questions at any point, interrupt me. If I only get through half of what I've prepared, fine. I'm here for you. And whatever I have to share, I hope might become fruitful. This is one of my favorite scripture readings. When I communicated with Natalie to find out what exactly it was you wanted me to talk about, one of the things she wrote was, pray and you will know what you need to hear. Well, I did. And the first thing that came to my mind was this piece of scripture. At first I cut it off and made it into its own slide. Let the peace of Christ rule your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace. And be thankful. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly as you teach. It's over here. But of course it continues. As you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom, through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts, and whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father. This is where I went to school. In Germany, we don't have a strict a separation as you do here between public schools and Catholic schools. So this was a public school, but in public school we had religion as a subject. So you were either Catholic or a Protestant, or you would opt out. And at some point in your school career, and our schools, so gymnasium is of course not the gym, but it's what we call this type of school, and it was grade 5 to 13, now it's grade 5 to 12. It's the same as here. I always thought it was only Germany that did 13 years. For many it was popular to opt out and have a spare period, but I never felt this was an option. I was lucky to have friends like who like me came from good Catholic families and went to church. But then there were some teachers, religion teachers. I do not remember much of the content that was being taught, but I do remember very clearly which of the teachers were truthful, whether we as children, not really knowing what we're thinking, but whether we felt that they were just teaching a subject, or whether they were bearing witness, whether what they taught was backed by their life. That's something to keep in mind. We're here in a very different situation. We're lucky to have publicly funded Catholic schools. Why lucky? Well, some view it as an increased chance of getting a teaching position, since there are more school boards to apply for. And I know that you do not think that, otherwise you wouldn't be sitting here. But what distinguishes us from other schools? Now, so kind of planning with the end in mind, let's look at this. It's different for everybody, of course, and not everybody gets to be 90 or 100 or whatever. But very roughly, religious formation, of course, doesn't stop when you're not a child anymore. It doesn't stop when you get out of school. But very roughly, you'd say the first 20 years, childhood youth is their kind of education phase. Then comes adulthood, professional career, family, orientation time. And then your senior years, retirement, disease, death, you need meaning. This can be very different, but roughly this is we find. We will all agree, of course, that religious formation doesn't stop when you're done with school, or really doesn't ever stop. One of the difficulties we see in our society is that people who are missing the foundation and or have not built on it would have massive struggles later on in life. But as teachers, this is what we deal with. Pretty much like from age 4 to 18. That's what we have as teachers. And as individual teachers, you have one little sliver of that. I'm lucky as a kindergarten teacher, I have it for 2 years. Ideally, the students come to our school from a home where they have had religious education or religious experiences, like going to church or praying with their families, experiencing religious celebrations like weddings, baptisms, funerals, and coming from a religious background. But we all know that we cannot take that for granted, even in our Catholic schools. We have students who hardly ever set foot in the church, or there's nothing or very little to build on. So what's our goal? What's our hope for the outcome? I know my husband said this is too long to put on a slide, but and he's right. But I just found this quote so very beautiful that I thought I really wanted to read it to you. I found it on the website of the Institute for Catholic Education, and it sums everything up very briefly. Ontario Catholic schools recognize the dignity and value of each student created by God and lovingly called to the wonder of life, sustained by the power of the Holy Spirit throughout life's journey into eternal life. Catholic education addresses the human search for meaning, the desire of the person to understand human life as an integration of body, mind, and spirit. Rooted in this vision, Catholic education fosters the search for meaning as a lifelong spiritual and academic quest. The curriculum in Ontario Catholic schools is understood not only in terms of knowledge and skills, but necessarily in terms of values, attitudes, and actions informed by reason and faith. The critical relationship between learning and believing, between knowledge and faith, is fundamental to understanding the mandate of our Catholic schools. Wow, it's beautiful. It's big, right? So we have to break it down. How do we do this? So here we have our Ontario Catholic School graduate expectations. You all most likely know them. So I'm not going to read them to you. Also big goals. Big goals, how do we do that? Here's our TCDSB mission and vision, and I'm pretty sure that other Catholic boards will say it similarly, I guess. I'm not going to read this either. The Ontario curriculum documents, religion and family life. Here we go. Grade 1 to 8, religious education and family life education. And then there's lots for, or more, let's say, for high school. And as Barry told me, there are more documents that can be found. But, everything starts in grade 1. That's not right. Yeah, these are the documents. This is what you need to teach religion as a subject. Teaching academic subjects is one thing, but how do we fill it with life? If you teach physical education, and you're a couch potato, you will not convince your students. Yeah. I have a different problem. This is my problem. There's no curriculum for kindergarten. No religion curriculum. Non-existent. On the one hand, it's a problem, of course, but on the other hand, this is a big chance. In the absence of a curriculum, there is no discrepancy between academics and life, because there's no academics. It's a chance to build on life, on religious practices, to teach the subject. I will give you examples and ideas from my classroom, and we'll try to, from these, get some general principles applicable for older grades. Kindergarten curriculum is awesome. If you have some spare time, go online and look it up. And it's a lot to read. You need a little spare time to read it. It's awesome. And my firm conviction is this content of it will need to move through the grades. Yeah, so, okay, that only as a side. Here, my topic, well, no, hang on, before that. An untapped opportunity. Here we go. Religious education in kindergarten, how do we do it? It's a good time window to link religious education to real life, and we're going to try to derive principles from that. That's one of the slides that my husband put in for me. I have no idea how to do this, but it looks great. Evangelization. you guys are way smarter than I am. And I know that that was your topic, right, the last time I saw him. Kind of a little bit. Put that in my title, and I might not know what I'm talking about. But I love introductions to documents, especially if they're well written. So I started reading through the introduction of the religious education document for grades 1 to 8. And one of the things I found, and I thought that was very good to help us with understanding what exactly it is when we talk about evangelization, a quote from Pope John Paul II, Christ must be proclaimed with joy and conviction, and above all by the witness of one's own life. So you better start with yourself. And then the other one is, I think it was the soil of the believer, so who's kind of your, well, audience is certainly the wrong word, but who are we dealing with? You need to know them. Like you need to know your students very well, including their families. This would involve examining not only the nature of the students who are being taught, but also the culture in which they live with their families. Both have a powerful influence on what our students experience, value, and believe. So here we go. Lessons learned from kindergarten. Part 1. Start with yourself. If you want to evangelize, you better start with yourself. My daughter left. She would have loved this. I'll make this very short. Start with yourself, the foundation. Here we go. I was lucky that I grew up in a Catholic family. That was my mother's uncle. He was a priest and a missionary in India. And so he only came home every 7 years. He baptized me, so I gather I must have been about 14 in that picture. And I don't remember what we talked about. I don't remember the visit, but what I do remember was the conversation with him, where I was so impressed. I thought missionary, that must be somebody who goes to some poor country and who like brings the kids the Bible, pretty much. But what he said was that, yes, of course he did that, but he said he lived with them and he worked with them, and if they needed food, they gave them food. And I was very impressed, and it left a big impression on me. First communion. So I was lucky, and I was then also lucky to find a husband where we are doing this together. So even before we got married, this was part of a Gregorian chant Schola. That was kind of our life together, our wedding, the baptisms of our kids. That lovely girl that just left, it was her first communion in Cologne Cathedral. So 3 of our kids were born and baptized in Germany, and our youngest son, we have 4, our youngest son, we lived in Dallas, in Texas. That's right there, St. Rita, Dallas, Texas. And what we experienced was that church was always a home for us. We found a home. We moved around. We lived in Dallas, and we moved back to Germany, and then we came here 12 years ago, and it was really always in our parishes or then in places like the choir school, where we found like-minded people and really found a home. And I consider myself very lucky. Here we go. This is really the most important part of the things I want to talk to you about. What can we do? Identify life scenarios with religious content. Open these scenarios up to class participation. Share information and teach content along real life scenarios. And when and where it's possible to apply the church's rites or sacraments to these scenarios, open them up to class and school participation. It's very theoretical. What I will do now is I will share with you examples of things I do or have done. And it was really interesting for me when I was preparing for this and looking through mostly pictures from the last, I think I've been now at St. Joseph's Catholic Elementary School for about 6 years. It was interesting what has come together over that time. I was sometimes surprise myself. I start very little, very basic thing, right? Birthday. There are different ways to do this. And we all sing happy birthday, and some kids bring cupcakes, whatever. What I always do is, and yes, this is kindergarten, but I think this is totally applicable to any grade. I have a birthday prayer. And now the kids know it, and they ask for it. So what we do is, we have a prayer, and then we have this blessing. And even the little kindergartners understand the blessing, and we do it together. The kids speak it with me, they extend their hand, and the student whose birthday it is gets a blessing. And then they get to take their prayer home and show it to their parents. So the birthday blessing. I find it sets, it's the same thing that we do anyway. We celebrate a birthday, but we put it into a perspective. Hands-on, right? It's Easter, yes, we celebrate things, but hands-on. Easter baking, hot crust buns. The kids love it, and they understand. Yeah, isn't that wonderful? I just listen to it. Yeah. And we can do that, right? I mean, we always have to tailor it to the grade that we're teaching. Of course, we can't just take everything in. But when we know our students, there's a lot that we can do. Hand-on catechesis. Barry, she did respond yesterday and gave me the read. We were lucky last year to, because of the absence of a curriculum, there are attempts, and I think they want to give us a curriculum, so that there are forces that are working on things. And we, for a couple months, had somebody come in and run a pilot project. I don't want to talk too much about it, but the wonderful thing, and you can see that here, what it really fostered in the students, and they didn't get it the first time, but through repetition, it was really interesting what it did to these little kids who are really squirrely. and there's a lot going on, but we would always meet out in the hallway and then have a little quiet procession into the classroom, and it was all very quiet. Annie spoke very softly. Someone's at a prayer table. We have a prayer table in the classroom, but she had her own little prayer table. She had her Bible, and she always had something that she spoke about. Here was the Good Shepherd, very hands-on. And in her very soft and beautifully calm and kind voice, she would read a scripture reading to the kids. And in all squirminess, these kids started understanding what contemplation is. And believe it or not, 4 and 5-year-olds can do that if you practice it. It takes practice, and that's why I'm showing it, because these things, sometimes you wonder, like, okay, we have to teach, we have to get through the curriculum, okay, go, but we also have to repeat, and just sometimes dial back. Things need practice. That's one thing I learned from her catechesis. At the beginning, we often have to say that, like, okay, we go outside, we do it at our classroom, and we can thank God outside just as much as, yes, of course, that's fine, but this is also needed. And when we go to school for school masses, it pays off if they have learned some kind of, because they don't come with it. They might come, and I was just talking to a teacher friend 2 days ago, and she said, and she has a grade 4, I think, and she said, it's awful when we go to church for the church mass, and I like talk to the kids about how do we behave. Oh, I don't have to be quiet, we can talk in church. Yeah, well, that was the teacher last year who told them that, who came to church with their coffee cup. Yeah, it's a problem.
Quick question.
Please.
So I've spoken to a few different people, and I've seen on Twitter, actually, some of the priests retweet images and links to websites where there's a lot of toys and costumes and outfits for kids. There's a sacrament set, so they can have the chalice, and they can have the robes and vestments and things, and a lot of it's for parents in the home to show their children what's actually on the altar, or what the yoke is and what the vestments are. Would liturgical toys for kids be appropriate in the classroom or no?
I think that's a really good question. I think there are several things to say about this. Definitely not as a dress-up center, right? One of the things, I will come to that, but kind of the next over. In order to introduce something, I would say, and she did that. She had little things where she explained to the children what is on the altar, and they were allowed to handle it, but in a very careful and supervised way.
There's
and
some
very
structure
reverent.
items. Yes.
Well, frankly, I think it's really a lot up to the teacher. We had, with this pilot project, there were big problems, right? There were 5 schools that were doing it, and some of the schools where the kindergarten teachers were like, okay, you know, like we can't have this. This is like somebody sitting in the front and the whole class, like the teaching, full class teaching, we don't do that. We have to do it as centers. Just put the stuff out as a center, let the kids play with it. And we said, we are so about play-based, and we're outside, and all of that. But for this, it is completely inappropriate. It doesn't work. You can't put out these things and let the kids just play with them.
Because there's no explanation.
There's no explanation, and it's, for that, I would say it's useless, because that's not what we want to teach the kids. This is something to just mess around or toy around with. So it does need a lot of teaching. So I would say, if it's backed up, and let me say something, like the next over slide, I will say something, I will not forget it, I will say something to that. I think it's an excellent question, because yeah. Okay, here. This was, like, the next two, this one and the next one, are things that were, I consider gifts. These were gifts. In kindergarten, we say emergent curriculum. Like, we take what the kids come with. You know, we're open to, sometimes they call it teachable moments. I don't like that very much, that expression. But kind of the idea behind it, maybe. So there was this family, and they were really struggling. They were renovating a house. They had bought this rundown thing. They had, I think they had to leave the front and everything else. It was a mess. And the child was suffering from it, and the mother was like complaining every single day about the big mess and what could she do. And I don't know exactly how this came about, but somehow we had the idea, why don't we go and bless your house? And I really don't remember how exactly it came about, because like I won't tell people to do something like that, but it just came in a conversation. I grabbed it. It was awesome. And it was this time of the year, Epiphany. I'll talk about that later. In Germany, we have this tradition of star singing. I don't know if you've heard it. So around Epiphany, kids dress up as the 3 magi and go from house to house. They say Sternsinger, it's the star singers. It's the biggest, worldwide biggest fundraiser, kids for kids. So in every parish, every school has their star singing. They go from house to house, and they have chalk. It gets blessed, and then there's this blessing. I will show you later what that looks like. The blessing on the house, the blessing of the star singers. And I've been doing this for years now with the children. I'll show you that, and it fit right in. So, yeah, here my beloved principal wired me, our parish priest, and my colleague, and I made a little leaflet. I'll show you the things I brought. Some of the things the way I just did them. I made a little leaflet for prayers, very kind of age appropriate. And I spoke with the kids, and here we go. You can practice these things. You can talk about them. The beauty of our Catholic rituals and rites is that they are so, like, they're symbols and signs. And yes, you have to understand them, and yes, you can practice them, but other than, like, if you practice a play, you practice it, and then you perform, and then you perform again, and then you perform again. But here we can practice, but when we do it, that's when it happens. That's the difference. Yes, we can kind of play it if it's done right, but when it's then done in church, then it happens. And I think the kids understand that. So, you see it here, they came with their Magi crowns, and we had a candle, we had water, the kids were allowed to help bless us.
So
Yes?
would it be maybe fair to say that they have to, just in a sense, they have to dramatize something out before they can integrate it and individuate it for themselves? So
Well, maybe they don't have to. It doesn't really matter if we really understand it. It happens anyway, but it does help. That's how I would say it. This was probably the most beautiful thing that was ever really given to me. It was a gift. I consider this a gift. Might not ever happen to you. There was a family, and we had done Star of the Week posters, and one of the boys was like every kid on their Star of the Week poster, there's a baptism picture. I don't have one, and he went home and complained to his parents, why is there no baptism on my Star of the Week poster? And it turned out the boy was adopted, and by the time the parents started thinking about his baptism, the little sister was adopted, so they didn't kind of get to it. And that's where we were at. The boy was in my class, the little sister was in preschool. The parents came to me and said, well, Ronnie is talking about baptism, what can we do? And I said, well, go to the priest. and so, having a good relationship with parents is so important. I could have made it a lesson, but the way it worked out was through the conversation. They were like, yeah, I know we're going to do it, and well, it turned out we did it together as a class. So it was a wonderful chance. We took all these Star of the Week posters, we looked at the baptism pictures, we asked the other kids, bring in baptism pictures. We looked at the pictures. So what do you see on the pictures? What is baptism all about? What do you need for a baptism? So we wrote that down. And we really immersion curriculum. It came together. And if you've been to baptisms, I mean, there's nothing more richer than baptism. Like all these signs, the water, the oil, the vestments, the white, what do? Like we're not putting them into a white baptism gown. So okay, you just have some white cloak. And Riley was a super shy boy. And I was really worried that he would like sink into the ground when we came in, like all the attention was on him. Even worse with his little sister. So I did, and you have to do it very carefully, I did play with them, right? But very carefully and so telling them what the words are and what happens. We don't want this boy to be sprinkled with water and he's scared to death and doesn't know what happens, right? So we had to talk about these things. And when I spoke to our beautiful parish priest, he came and he's like, what are you doing here? So I went through all the documents. I looked at what do you really need, and I condensed everything into a leaflet again, so that people, because we knew the family would be there, it needed to be short. And I said to him, we have everything there, everything is there, but we don't have to have a litany of the saints that, takes 10 minutes. Can't do that. It can be short. It's there, but it's short. And the priest asked me, so what do you want me to do? And I said, well, it needs to speak for itself. Here it's happening, and the kids will be part of it. And they were, and the attentiveness, so we invited other teachers in as well, and some came, especially some with their special ed classes. The principal was there, and the kids, all the kids had their little jobs. And the way they took this seriously and the way they were there was, it was incredible. If you see the seriousness on them, and if you knew these kids, here, little Lucas, look at him. He took it, they were carrying the cross, right? Or these two. Like, look at their faces. It was really interesting. Yeah, and the songs, of course, like those were songs that we, thank you, Lord, for giving us life. That's all you need. Here we go. He was not scared anymore because he knew what was happening, but he was there, and he knew this was it. Here, those are the two. And, I mean, this girl, the most rambunctious little girl, right? But here, this was her job. Carry the oil for baptism. It was quite a thing. And they still talk about it. It's here we go, the Star Singers.
Question.
Yes, please. Sorry.
So is your parish attached to your school?
Well, I don't know exactly what you mean with attached, but yes. We do have a church next door-ish. The parish priest works together with, I'll talk about that later as well. But yes, we do have school masses, and he is kind of responsible for us. It's one of his official functions that he's our school priest.
Just also, I saw there were musicians. Were they teachers or did you hire them? Oh, you were a musician. Oh, okay. So you're trying to buy
Me and my principal.
Oh, very nice.
Where yeah, there we go. That, you know what? This is a case of work with what you have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
You have to be very animated when you work with the art. Yeah, that's, you know, talking about the foundations, my guitar is a big asset.
Larrabee, Martin?
Pardon?
Larrabee, Martin? What kind of guitar do you have?
Oh. Just a guitar. The Star Singers. This time of the year is a difficult time of the year. Advent, everybody thinks it's Christmas. Right? We go off for the Christmas break, we come back and everybody thinks Christmas is over. Well, it's the other way around. Yeah. During the time that my old principal was still there, at the end of the Christmas break, it would always like kind of start to dawn on me. Oh yeah, well, we're starting school again. It's around Epiphany. What we're going to do? I was shooting them an email. It's like, okay, you know what? We need something. So first day of school, we're going to do an Epiphany assembly. Yeah. Now I have a principal where it's not so easy. Everything has to apply for 2 weeks before, so that doesn't work anymore. But the Star Singers, as I said, it's a tradition that's done in my home country. Everybody knows what Star Singers are. All the kids just do it. So how do you do it? So what I do is, I mean, the story of the three wise men is very, kids can understand that. What are they looking for? They're following the star. What do they find? They find Jesus. Yes. And the star stands for something, right? Like, Christmas doesn't end when Christmas ends. We still want to follow the star. So this is what it's all about. And that way, if you think about it that way, it's actually perfect for the beginning of the year, because no, Christmas is not over. And even if you don't really understand, here we go. The star is still there. And this is what guides us into the year. And yes, I haven't yet, actually yesterday, one of the kids was like, oh, like, can you come to our house? And he was like, okay, maybe someday we'll do that. For now, we're going from class to class in the school, and we have our prayers, and the kids understand, and here we go. They're all blessing the classroom. Yeah. Very good. And also the principal's office, and they have their crowns, and we have the star. And that's the blessing, right? 2019, the years around it, the star, and then CMB, yeah, you think, Castor, Melchior, and Balthazar. Did I have it somewhere? Christus mansionem benedicat, it's Latin. Christ may bless this house. Yeah, even the kids understand. Now, just yesterday, I had this all done. I was just so happy we had, this is one of the things I do in my school, it comes later, but I can talk about this now. Because this is something that's really critical, at least if you're teaching in elementary school. I introduced a buddy system. Many schools have that, reading buddies, right? So older kids come, and when I started in my school, the grade 8s, because the teachers were friends, right? The kindergarten teacher and the grade 8 teacher, and the grade 8 kids would come in and I said, like, this is not really good, because the grade 8s, they're too old for the kindergartners. Also, what really works and it doesn't really work, but in theory it works. If you buddy the kindergarten, junior kindergarten, senior kindergarten with, I have to, 1, 2, 3, with a grade 5, 6, 7, 8. In a way it works that if you buddy the kindergarten with grade 5, then they kind of theoretically walk up together. And the way it used to work when they went to confirmation in grade 8, then by the time they were in grade 8, their buddies were in grade 2, and that was their sacrament year. So the little guys would do First Communion, and the older ones would do confirmation. It doesn't really work like that anymore because confirmation is now in grade 7. Also, especially in our school, it doesn't even out with the amount of kids and with the teachers and everything. But what I did change is I'm buddying with grade 5, 6 class. And this year, for the first time, my buddy class, the grade 5s and 6s, those were my first kindergartners. My first full day kindergartners. And this is a beautiful situation because these kids remember what we did. What we didn't. And so yesterday morning, all of a sudden, and this is really how I operate, often I'm just kind of receiving things. I didn't plan this, I had just so hoped that we could do Star Singers again. But I didn't really know how we could do it because this week has been incredibly busy and so on. And then all of a sudden I thought, yes, no, maybe we can. And I read the story again and I talked to them about it. And my senior kindergartners know it from last year because we went Star Singing. So all of a sudden, okay, we'll make crowns. And the kids were so enthusiastic about it. Now we have the crowns together. And then in the afternoon, our reading buddies came for reading. And I said, okay, we're going to read for 20 minutes and then we're going to do some musuka. And I talked to them about it and said, you know what? Monday morning, we'll go Star Singing. Tuesday, we have our school mass, and we will do kind of Christmas Epiphany. Virtue of the month is courage. This will lead us into the new year. It's perfect. And we can go and bless the classrooms. And those grade 5, 6s, they are thrilled. Now, they can come with me, and this will be the first year where I don't only go with the kindergartners, but I'm taking the older kids to go and bless the classrooms. And this is something where I was so happy when I went home yesterday after school. It was like, okay, yes, it's happening. We can do our Star Singing. Actually, I had a lady from Development and Peace one year. I went really big. I had an assembly. It was one of the first years when we still have a principal, and I talked to the kids about this fundraising opportunities. In Germany, it's always a huge thing, and like, the whole country does it, and they go and visit the chancellor and sing for her. And they have one project somewhere in Africa or wherever that's supported by it. And so I talked to the Development and Peace people. And one of those ladies there got back to me and she's like, wow, this is awesome. I want to make this available to other educators. And she invited me to come, and I went to her office and I told her about the Star Singing and how it's done. And she thought she wanted to write something about it, and it never happened. I think she switched jobs or whatever it was, but yeah, there we go. That's another thing. I do a lot of outdoor education, and you can invite me some other time to talk about that. But for a couple of years, we lugged bins in and out, and we are on a concrete place. But then, because people started to notice us, et cetera, we got a big grant, and they made us a fake grass mound, and they put a chalkboard out, and the best thing, they gave us a shed to put stuff in, because you can only put up board-approved sheds. Well, the parents wanted to give us sheds, but they won't. So in September, the bulldozers came, and as soon as that was done, and yeah, that was the time when we just had our new principal, and she really didn't know me yet. I think she thought I was pretty crazy. Well, and I went to her and I said, you know, we need a blessing of our outdoors. And she thought, that's awesome, that's great. I will email like the higher ups on the board, and they all have to come, and yeah, nothing happened. And then I went again, October, November. Yeah, no, like they haven't gotten back to me as a trustee and everything else. This is not about the trustee. This is about, yeah. So nothing happened. Christmas, Epiphany. I'm like, okay, now winter. I had a great idea to bless a classroom when it's out icy and snowy. And then I'm like, okay, our last chance. In June, last week of school, we always have a party for, so don't think kindergarten graduation. It's a thing of the past. we don't do that anymore since we started full day kindergarten. But we do have a party because like we've been with the seniors that move on. We've been with them for 2 years. We invite the parents. And I said to the principal, okay, you know what, this is our last chance. We can't, like, anything after that is ridiculous. We've worked with this outdoor classroom now for almost a school year. We need to have this now. And then finally she caved and was like, okay, whatever, trustees. And by that time, after almost a year, you know, she always say to me, like, are you doing another one of your para-liturgies? I hate this word. It sounds like paramilitary. This is a liturgy, you know? It's whatever. So, and again, we talked about this with the children. I tried to involve as many people as I could. So I made little leaflets again, blessing of the outdoor classroom. I spoke to our priest, and like he knows me, and yes, they all know I'm crazy, but they also kind of like it. So we had our water, and we blessed it. And what do you use to bless it? So, you know, very appropriately we had, and the kids were delighted. So see how they're helping to bless the classroom. It's awesome. And the reason why I put this picture up, that's our caretaker. I always try to involve people. I've been trying to get the secretary to read something. She can never come to our assemblies or anything because she has to guard. I'll talk about that later. Yeah, that was a beautiful thing. Another thing. When the cathedral was renovated, I thought I have to take the kids there. It's just so beautiful. So the first reaction when our principal was new and I wanted to do this building, I got from her, okay, what are the curriculum connections to going to the cathedral? Yeah. Okay, now she's not asking me anymore. And this year, I went again, but this time I thought, I will take our reading buddies. These are the kids that have known me for a long time. So instead of taking 2 kindergarten classes, which is really crazy, like 50 kids on one streetcar. No, we do it, but, and you go with the rush hour. So I took our reading buddies, and look at them. It was very beautiful. We were very lucky relationships. You know, you need people. We have this, Teresa, we have the beautiful lady at the cathedral. And so I had spoken to her, and she was fully on board. She loved the idea of us coming. And evangelization, yes, you have the kids, it's very important. For these things, the parents. Man, did I have great parent reactions afterwards. Okay, like, I've never been to the cathedral, this is beautiful. And Teresa made it possible. Not only did she take the kids group-wise up to the organ loft, she also let us go into the crypt, which is normally always locked. And I didn't even think we could do that. But yeah, she made that possible. And you know, I did it. So what do? How do you approach that? The first time we went, Barry was still the principal at the choir school, had an ally there. So what we did that time was we buddied with the grade 3s of the choir school. Those are the babies of the choir school, they're the babies in our school. I know the grade 3 teacher really well, so they came over and we met. And I made a little scavenger hunt. So I took pictures of different things, like the stained glass windows and those shields and the tabernacle and those beautiful. Have you ever seen those trumpets that stick out of the organ? Awesome. So for the kids just to have something to look at when they walk around the church. And we did it the same way here again, but this time the grade 3 teacher thought his class this year wasn't so good to do this together. So that's why I brought my buddies and our grade 5, 6 reading buddies. Yeah, school masses. We are not only reading buddies, we go to church together. That's great. It works on so many levels. So you see that the school comes together in the church. Those are important things. I'll talk more about that. Board initiatives. This was something where like every school was given out kind of a puzzle piece to use. One year, I don't know when it was, 2 years ago or so, around St. Joseph's Day, March 19th, I was so frustrated. I went to one of my teacher colleagues and I said, I'm looking for St. Joseph songs. For our Mass, I want a good St. Joseph song. And there are some, but they're just not, they don't work for elementary schools. They're neither catchy nor do they have a refrain, it just doesn't work. And he looked at me, on Fraser, and said, well, one time I was in the school and the music teacher just wrote their own school song. Oh, that's interesting. But he said, well, he used a tune from some other song and he made words for that. Yeah, so that kind of started working in me. And I often have to wait long because my husband works so much and he lets me wait a lot. But I don't really know how it happened, but I wrote a song for our school, a St. Joseph song. And it needed to work, it needed to have a refrain that even the kindergartners can do, and it needed to have verses that reflect something about St. Joseph. And so the song has 3 verses, and one is about Joseph and Mary, and Jesus, then about Joseph and Jesus, and then about Joseph and all of us. And it works, the kids love it, the school loves it, the teachers love it, and I can only consider it a gift that was given. And when we had the job by the board to do this puzzle piece, the teacher who was put in charge of doing the artwork came to me and she said, well, why don't we do it around the song? And so in the middle of that great thing, that's the song that they used, the words, things about St. Joseph's life, to have some of the kids do different artwork about around the song and about Joseph's life. So school board initiatives, it's really worth looking on the website and seeing what these people come up with, and it's totally underused. So when I'm now mixing up things, but it doesn't matter. When I started in my school, there was somebody who owned the job of religion rep. Yeah, and I'm saying that on purpose like that because he went to the When Faith Meets Pedagogy conference, but that was all we knew. He was gone that day, and there was a supply teacher was paid for, but what? Nothing. And we have these 3-year pastoral plans. Nothing was ever communicated to the school. And I didn't know anything about it. I kind of did my own thing. When you come to a school, you see what's going on, and he was religion rep. So yes, and because our music teacher left the school, so there was nobody to play anymore, I took over with the guitar, and the person who owned the PowerPoint presentation for the Mass at some point retired. No, she didn't retire, she went to a different school. And then I said, okay, I'm doing the music, so fine, I'm just going to do the PowerPoint as well. But these things are more than just, you fill the PowerPoint. It's start with yourself and look at who you're serving. This has evolved a lot. So many of these kids never go to church, let's face it. So the prayers, as we know, if we go to weddings or whatever, the priest communicates with the organist. Nobody else knows the prayers. So yeah, you can laugh about that or complain about it or do something about it. So what I did is I spoke to the priest, what are the prayers that you're using? And I put everything on that PowerPoint. So the kids have it in front of them, and it empowers them. They can actually participate. It's not their fault that they don't go to church, but now we empower them, they can actually participate. So I consider these things way more. Now our religion rep owner retired, so I went to the principal and I said I would like to do this. I'm doing a lot of this stuff anyway, but I would like to become the religion rep. And the first year she put me on with somebody else, and then the other person said, I really don't want to do this, so now I do it. And the beautiful thing is I don't need any titles. And I certainly don't want free days. But when I went to the religion rep meeting in September, I was really surprised. These people often like have such great ideas, and there was literally one of those lead people in the board who stood there and said, I offer retreats for grade 7s and 8s around confirmation or whatever, but nobody wants it. Nobody comes. Like, please communicate that to your schools. I can come anytime. I can do any grade. I can do back-to-back whatever classes. She was almost begging us. Like, that's crazy. So really, this is my only regret maybe that I have, that I didn't start looking for these things earlier. I thought, like, you know, who am I? But looking back, and maybe this is really one of my pieces of advice to you, look for these things. If nothing is there, do it, because nobody else is going to do it. And now, after having this new principal for 3 years, for the first time, on the Faith PA Day in September, whenever it was, she actually said to me, because she knew that she couldn't go around the faith part of it anymore, she said to me, like, why don't we communicate whatever was communicated at that Rose Rep meeting? And it was good, because like now I was able to communicate this to her this time.
Question?
Yes, please.
I was just curious about the religion position, because I'm an Halton Catholic, and I learned just recently there's something called a pastoral animator, and basically each school has a person that kind of is responsible for like the faith formation stuff and the mass and everything, and it turns out it's actually paid by the board too. I was curious if that's something similar to Toronto. No?
Well, it's certainly not paid here.
Okay.
I don't know if I even like the term animator, but
I know, it's
I would
it's descriptive.
think that is, I mean, I know that high schools have chaplains, and that's a different thing. Like, I mean,
No,
I
she's
guess
just
Barry was.
this teacher is just a normal teacher, and then she had this additional salary because she's a
Nice.
pastoral person.
Oh, I think we should have that in
that's
TCSB too.
Very good idea. That's Hamilton guy.
Halton.
But are they the Hamilton?
Oh, yeah, they're Hamilton.
So that's where the money would come from.
Is that a similar thing to our religion
I
rep?
think it's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea, very like that's.
It's more elementary, but high school, people refer to chaplains,
Yeah.
but technically, a layperson is not a chaplain.
Right.
So they call chaplaincy leaders. The question is, well, who's the chaplain that the chaplaincy leader of? It should be a local path. It gets confusing. So some people
I'm
look
very
at
confused.
terms like Catholic faith animator. So what's an interesting term, because the idea is that you're supposed to bring the faith to life in your school.
It's actually what we do.
Right. As opposed to a religion rep is, you're going to need to come back, here's the updates on the religion curriculum. You know what I mean? That seems more like more a technical curriculum position, as opposed to what you're talking about is an animator's. Your job is to bring faith to life in your school.
That's what I consider myself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Right.
Hmm.
It's a great idea. I like it.
Yeah.
To communicate that to us. I don't care about the salary, but I think it's a very valid point, because yes, actually you are summarizing like the stuff that I'm doing anyway, right? And where I really say I regret that I didn't start with these things earlier. When I took over my religion rep position, I found out that we were in the middle of this 3-year pastoral plan, where it was the year of the parish when we did this puzzle piece. But the year before had been the year of family. The year of I never even heard about it. Whoa, what great chances, especially in an elementary school. Man, what great chances. Completely missed, out the window, nothing. And so if this person isn't there, or they are not doing their job, or it doesn't really matter if you call it that or not, if it's not done, it's not done, and then it's lost. And you're right, this is a huge missed chance. So that's where I encourage that, yes.
So, kind of relating to some of the things that have been brought up, one issue I ran into, I'm not permanent, I'm only an occasion, but one problem I ran into was getting buy-in from administration to do things at mass, like have music.
Shocking.
And so if you're not getting stakeholder buy-in from administration, who might you be able to lean on within the community with it? Because I don't want to overstep bounds on things. So is it the right thing to maybe talk to the priest about what to do in these sort of circumstances? Or should you just leave some things alone? because it's kind of important during a mass.
Very much so. Yeah, that's another really good question. And there's no answer that covers it all. A lot is about relationships, right? So, yeah, the next big point, examples from the classroom, the next point is the peers. Right. Oh, wait, hang on. Oh yeah, those are my assemblies. Yeah, I'll choose later. Peers, administration, and priest. And there are all sorts of scenarios. And this is kind of the harder part of my presentation here, because the situations are just so vastly different in different schools. When I started at my school, the staff room almost seemed like a Shark Tank sometimes. Yeah, you're all nodding. Yeah, we all know that, right? And unfortunately, often, there are mean people around, period. That's like, we have to face it. We can't sugarcoat that, and sometimes the only thing we talk about what we do. And then every class can make a wreath, whichever way you want to do that. But write down the thoughts. And you wouldn't believe, like, what we got in kindergarten, what these kids are capable of thinking of a piece. And what does all this mean? It was amazing. And here we go, here the kindergartners. And like, we could do it like a service. This year, I thought we'll do it a little bit differently. Instead of every kid having a poppy on a wreath, and they would carry it up, and then one of the kids from the class would, as a representative from the class, say, okay, what does the piece mean to us? It was very beautiful. This year we did a little bit differently. Every class got one of these doves, and out of the conversations in the class, they were asked to write down a wish or something on it. And we had it in our assembly, and then also for the school mass, we brought it over to the church with us for the Romans Day Mass. So there's so much that you can do, even if you have to, work against paraliturgy. Yeah, okay. I had to convince her by seeing that this is not a dangerous thing that I'm doing there with same here, right? So beginning of Advent, but this is beautiful. Every class has their Advent wreath. We can bring this together. So again, right? Tiptoe, a little bit careful. Like if you don't have one, that's fine. Just come anyway. So we have an assembly. And here, our Father Francis now, he's on board again, and he loves it, right? Like, I mean, I give him everything. He gets his thing, so he can read here. But it's because they know it's going to be fine. And every class here, these my little kindergartners, brings up the Advent wreath, and then all in the fun, they got blessed. It was very beautiful. Same thing here, outreach, right? Between our school and the church, there's a retirement home. We're outside a lot, these poor old people were pretty loud. So once a year, we go and we sing Christmas, like Advent stuff. We just sing for them. And it's beautiful, because it gives relationship, right? They see who we are, and we see who they are, and it's very nice. And then I take kids to see kids once a year too. Another thing, if you have opportunities like that, it's beautiful. Sing for the sick children. And I can only take a couple, and by now, I've been doing it for a couple of years, always before Christmas. I have kids that come to me in September. Are you going to see kids again? I asked my mom, I can come. That little girl, yeah, she's in grade 2. Okay, I have to read this to you. I do outdoor classroom. I take the kids to the local park every week on nature walks. From the mouths of the children. And I'll read to you what I wrote on my website. After this long and cold winter, it feels so wonderful to be out without snow pants and hats and mittens. Let me pull this out, this is bad. It's not complete. No, I can't read it to you because, whatever. the gist of the thing is, we were out there, and it was spring, the kids were happy. We're looking at the flowers, and all of a sudden, this rambunctious little boy, who like is always in mischief, without warning, he threw his hands in the air and shouted, "Thank you, God!" Okay, whoa, what's going on? What are you saying? "The flowers are so beautiful, and God made them." He's 5. And really, like he's not one of those, you know, like, no. And all the kids were standing around. "Oh, yeah, right." And then one of the kids was pointing up, said, "Look, there's a cross in the sky." And all the kids were looking up and said, "Yeah, of course. That's because what Hitler said." These are 4 and 5-year-olds. When we started fully kindergarten in my school, it was a big kerfuffle. We only had one kindergarten room, and it was, the class was too big, and we didn't have room, and it was supposed to be a senior kindergarten grade 1 split, and the parents were in arms. It was awful. And so the school board decided to give us a second kindergarten room. It was not ministry approved, so we had no resources, we had no washrooms, no retrofitting, nothing. We got an old music room with boiler pipes that were exposed and no materials, nothing. Like my colleague and I, we just brought stuff from home. And I dealt with half the class while she would come into that horrible, messy, crazy room and try to make it into a beautiful classroom for us. And so one day she was walking by the room and she just looked and said, like, "How are we ever going to do this?" And one of these kids pointed up, and what you don't see is above the cross, there's a little ledge. And they had a really pretty worn out statue, like a huge, big one of St. Joseph standing there that somebody had like not needed anywhere. It was very dusty. And the kids pointed, like, "It's okay, Miss Lugar. It's okay. Jesus is there. And St. Joseph is there." Other than most of the children. Here we go. Lessons learned from kindergarten peers. I already started touching on this. Now, I had a bump in the road while I was working on my presentation. I'm just going to tell you something very personal about myself. I got diagnosed with cancer in March, and I had 2 surgeries. I was not able to go to school for the rest of the school year, and I was told it's a very rare kind, and they were able to take it out, and they were very confident it was all out, it was fine, but there was a chance of recurrence, so they said every 3 months you have to go and have checkups. And my first 2 rounds of checkups in June, it looked, as I said, like maybe there's something on the lungs, but it's very small, it's fine. And so I went through the whole summer not knowing what would happen, and I still didn't know in August if I would be going back to school. They scheduled me like really the week before school started, end of August. The school was not very happy about me, but they scheduled another CT, and we knew what was at stake. So they looked at it, and the doctor was happy. He said, "Yeah, those things are still there, but they haven't grown. It's all fine, and you can like possibly this will go on for the next year, so you won't have to do your checkups, and it's going to be fine." So I started school again. I'm really like, as you might be able to tell, I really like my job. So this week on Tuesday, I had like the next scheduled checkup, and I really was like, okay, just let's get it over with. You know, have the CTs, see the doctor, and then move on. And unfortunately, these metastases have grown, and I don't know what's going to happen. But this is how far I had gotten with my presentation, that far. So after this, there will not be any beautiful pictures anymore. It will be more difficult anyway. But I still thought a lot about the things that I want to tell you, but I just couldn't put them in slides. And I think we have touched on a lot already anyway. This is a really difficult part. because every situation is so different. So, I don't know, maybe at this point, we'll just open it up to questions. I think I've talked a lot. And here are my conclusions, right? You can make them together. I brought a gift for you guys. As you might have been able to tell, I think candles are very important. The light. My last name Licht, right? It's a German word, means light. I got married. I was very happy. I thought I'd never have to spell my name again. And I moved to Canada. Yeah, right. I made these myself, and I made one. You saw that maybe for my school. And now that my principal knows that I'm crazy, that mass, when I had this idea, and I thought, this is great, I have this candle, and we brought it to church. Here, that's our St. Joseph emblem. And she was actually, I'm like, okay, here's the blessing, if you want, and I said to Father Francis before Mass, like, I would like this on the altar, and we'll just bring that to all the assemblies that we have. And actually, it was beautiful. He blessed the candle, and the principal went up and was the first one to light it. And I think she really liked that. Actually, she came yesterday to me, and she said, I was wondering if you were coming Star Singing again. Yes! After 3 years, I've won you over. It just takes a long time sometimes. This is for you guys. Whoever came up with your name, I find it pretty funny. Young Catholic Association of Teachers. It's a Young Catholic Association. Excellent. There you go.
Thank you so much.
Now that I don't have any pretty handouts that I can give you or anything else. But what I want to offer you is, if you have an LTO, or then you are maybe a, I don't know what, you are a day-to-day supply, and there's a day when it's slow and you just want to go somewhere. I'm always happy to welcome people. We always have students, mostly I've had teacher students, we have AC students all the time. Also, I can leave you my email address if you have any questions, if there's anything that comes to you after all my blabbering. Please, by all means, email me, but right now, if I'm happy to try to.
I would love to thank you. You've done such a beautiful presentation for us, and I really see that you get it. I can't say that I really get it. I have the same priorities as you, but your examples are so rich, and I'd love to just sit at your feet and learn from you for so long, really. So thank you very much for coming. We just have a little thank you card for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, really, I have a little blog. I'm happy to give you, or you can just pass on my email address. I'm happy to share anything that can be useful to anybody.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
I was just going to say, you were worried about the word evangelization in your comment. It seems to me like everything you do evangelizes.
Yeah.
Everything.
Everything.
So anyway, you address the given topic.
Yeah.
I hope I did. And a lot of it is really being there, and some things you can only see when you look back. When you're in the thick of it, you can't. When I was standing in my colleague's room, really, where can I find a song? I'm sick, right? And really looking back, how did I do this? And this is only by grace. And there I can only say, you increase, I decrease. Let your light shine through. That's all I can say. And the rest is gift. I don't know if I'll ever have a chance again to have a baptism. That was the greatest gift. And I can tell you, I texted Riley's mom beforehand, and I said, are you okay to show people the pictures of and she was thrilled. And one thing actually that she also should, okay, I have 2 more minutes. that year when we had to retrofit our own classroom, yeah, that's my home. Cologne Cathedral. Over there. When we had to retrofit our classroom and just somehow make something out of nothing. We worked, of course, like very, very strongly with our caretaker, and he helped us a lot. And that's another person too. We had a good relationship with. And one Monday morning, we came into the school, in November. Yeah, no, in October, end of October. We came into the school, and it was obvious that something was wrong. Like there were people in the school that didn't belong there, and something was wrong. So what had happened was this caretaker, and he was 47, had collapsed on the weekend and had died. It was gone. And what do you do? What do you do? You could do business as usual, no problem. But of course that was a no-go, right? So the immersion curriculum, or if you want to say teachable moments, we just sat with the kids, and sometimes we don't have answers, and you can share that. You don't have answers. And we prayed with the kids, we lit our candle. Our writer's workshop was about Mike. What did you like about Mike? And interesting enough now, 6 years later, or it was not that much, it was 4 or 5 years later when our principal came and something had happened, the new principal. And something had happened in the school, somebody had died, and the principal was so worried. And, oh no, we can't tell the kids, no, we can't, like, oh. And the mother, Riley's mother, went to her and she said, crap. When that happened, they talked about it. And this is the way that Riley still remembers that. What you did in kindergarten, like, not talking about it, because it's not the adults, it's not the kids who have the problems with it, it's the adults who have the problems with it, right? But if we share that with them, if we share our hope, and also the sadness, and sometimes the struggling for words. When I got my diagnosis, it was Friday of March break. And my doctor had written me a note, as of immediately, she can't come to school anymore. I said, no, I can't do that. I can't just disappear. So I went to school on Monday, and I sat the kids down and I talked to them. And, it's difficult to do. Talk to them about cancer, but the children understand. And yes, you would do that very differently if you had a grade 8 class in front of you, or a grade 12 class, or a grade 4, whatever. But so you need to know your students, otherwise you can't share that with them. And otherwise you will not be believable, right? They won't buy it from you. I've had this discussion with a friend who's also a kindergarten teacher, and it was a totally different topic. It was about worms and scary critters. And she's like, oh, I hate these things. I'm like, how are you a kindergarten teacher? She's like, oh, I can fake it. Yeah. Yeah, you can fake it a little bit. And yes, some kids might not, but actually they won't. They will. And it's the same with this. You can't fake it. So there's a reason why the first part is start with yourself, right? And that's also why it's sometimes it's so much harder. This immersion curriculum thing, read the kindergarten curriculum, I tell you, read it. You have to start with what the kids come with. And they used to think, kindergartners, my gosh, they don't know anything, these kids are stupid. You just need to kind of put a funnel on their head, stuff in knowledge, and then they'll be fine. No. You have capable, curious, competent people in front of you. They're differently competent, but if you talk to some, I don't know what, computer scientist or whatever professor here, we're all stupid, right? But that's not how you want people to talk to you. And that's not what they want you to talk. No, you can't fake it. One thing that I forgot to put in there too, so what I want to say is, pulling out your October or your September, and this is what we always do because we've done it for 25 years, that we're teaching that, you can't do that because you have different kids in front of you. And let me tell you, it makes your job so much more interesting. right? Before I got this job at St. Joseph, and the only thing I knew when I got out of Teachers College, there was one thing I knew. I didn't want to become a teacher. And I was hooked from the first time, from the first day when my lovely principal hired me. But before that, I had an LTO in a grade 3-4 class. And I don't remember that much of it, but one of the things we had to do was, what's it called, habitats. And the teacher had left me everything. It was only 6 weeks. It was the beginning of the school year. I had to start the class. And so I pulled out of the drawer habitats, and there are elephants and giraffes. What do these kids care about them? What happened on the school year, somebody found a caterpillar. And the other teachers were like, ah, yuck, disgusting, throw this away. No, this is awesome. We brought it to the class. And, the kids were in awe, right? And over the next couple of days, the amount of stuff that these kids brought back from home. First of all, they were fighting about who was allowed to take this caterpillar home to take care of it over the weekend. So there was a great opportunity to talk about it, like sharing and how do we do this and blah, blah. But then there was this one kid who came back and said, I researched this caterpillar on the internet, and I found out it was whatever it was. But our printer was broken. So I really wanted to bring it, and this kid must have spent hours at night drawing about these caterpillars. And it's like, awesome, here's our science board, and this is the first item on our science board. I think, I only had 6 weeks and whatever happened afterwards, but all these worksheets about the elephants and the giraffes, yes, fine, but here's something that has something to do with them, right? Caterpillar actually died because somebody took it home, and the rest of the class was super mad.